Alright, today's story time. I actually don't even, I can't believe I remembered it because it's definitely one of those memories where you just never want to think about it again, and I'm definitely exposing how dumb I am, but yeah, that's the gist of that. So I think I mentioned it on my main channel, and how did it come up? Oh, I was organizing my upstairs craft room, and I have this IKEA drawer system, but there's something stuck behind the drawer, but the drawers don't come out, and so it just kind of brought up the memory of how I'd gotten my arm stuck in a filing cabinet drawer while I was at work, and had to call the fire department. So, oh man, I got so much shit for that from my coworkers, and actually one of them I'm still friends with till this day, and he brings it up often. That's why I'm like, how could I forget this? I think he's forgotten, or else he would definitely remind me. So that's actually how I met him. This was back in the early 2000s. I had a job, you know, where I was in an office Monday through Friday, and I actually remembered really loving this job. I loved the people I worked with, and I remember on Sunday nights I was so excited. I was excited to get dressed up and look cute. I was just kind of getting into the whole office apparel. Now, to be fair, when I look back at pictures of my outfits, I'm just like, oh my god, who remembers the look where you would wear those elastic thick belts right here? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? So anyway, but really loved this job. We were a pretty tight-knit group, and our department was actually very small. There was like 7 or 8 of us, and you know, we did things like birthday cakes for everybody. The guy that I'm still friends with, one time we did the whole sticky note all over the place thing, which was hilarious, and we did not help him unravel the mess. And we also like I think we ended up taking a trip down to San Antonio as a work group. Like, it was a really fun company to work for. And anyhow, it was so early in the 2000s that not everything was digitized yet. But basically, we still processed and did our job with a lot of paperwork, a lot of file folders, a lot of filing systems, and I really loved stuff like that. I really loved being organized, and I loved my desk station. I even think I have a picture of my desk because I loved it so much. And I remember I sat, like, if this was my cubicle and I looked that way, you know, it was the girl that I actually become best friends with at the time, and she sat there, and there was another cubicle in front of her and another cubicle in front of me. So there was 4 of us in one room, and then there was somebody in an office, and then there were a couple of them behind us in a room back, and that's where that one guy was with the post-it notes. So anyhow, in my desk, in the cubicle setup, part of the desk, it was like all built in, you know how that goes if you are, you know, in an office job. But I had a drawer that was, it was the bottom drawer, I believe, and it was just filled to the top. And I think it was like my personal drawer, and I was talking about being organized, but it was filled to the top. I think there was a magazine of some sort on top of this, and what happened was, when I went to close the drawer, it like moved, it like skimmed the stuff on top, and it pushed it to the back. And so when I went to shut it, it wouldn't shut all the way because there was a magazine that was now crumpled up and blocking you know, that. And so I reached my arm in there to get this magazine, and then guess what? The arm didn't come out, and it was actually this arm. And now that doesn't sound so bad at first because, you know, you're just like, okay, my arm is stuck, call the fire department kind of thing. But let me tell you, the angle that I was in actually wouldn't allow me to sit down on the ground. So it was actually very painful, just like the angle, and my elbow had gone past like whatever bracket was in there, and then I couldn't pull it out. So like once this went all the way back in there, it got stuck. It would not come out, and I had thinner arms back then. So I was basically on my knees, and I was like in this weird bent angle, and it was making my back hurt so bad. And then that started to spike into me being really concerned, because I was like, oh my God, there's no way for me to move or sit or anything. I was in this nightmare of a position. I couldn't just sit down on my bottom or anything. And at first everyone thought I was joking. And that was the other worst part. And because I laugh under stressful situations sometimes, like it's just like my defense mechanism, I guess. And I was just like, no, I'm really effing stuck. Somebody help me. And they were literally, I'm not joking, really this story shouldn't be about me, it should be about them. Because they were all on her cubicle. So from my standpoint though, because, if I was typing at my desk, I would be faced this way, okay? But my drawer, I remember being over here. So, and this was my back wall. So me reaching over, I could see them, so her cubicle was like this way. I know that's a whole, who cares? But anyway, so I'm sitting over here, and they're just leaning up against her cubicle wall or whatever, and I was just like, and I'm not kidding you, that went on for 20 minutes. And they thought, once they finally realized that, okay, her arm really is stuck in there, then they sat and laughed for 20 whole, it was a long time. It was a long time because it got worse, because I kept trying to pull my arm through, and then what was happening is my arm was swelling up. And then you're done. Then you're just done. And my back is like screaming at me, okay? And it's getting to the point where I'm getting these really painful like Charlie horses, and it's like putting me in tears because it's so bad. And I'm sitting here looking at them, and I'm like, my arm is really effing stuck. Like somebody, like I couldn't even reach for a phone or anything, even if I wanted to with my other arm. And I really was trying to get my arm out of this drawer. Now the drawer didn't pull out, or else I would have done that to get the magazine. It's the same thing kind of as the IKEA system, and maybe those drawers come out, but this specific filing cabinet was not made to actually be removed or whatever. It was literally built into this like tracking system. So so that's why, you know, I'd pull the drawer out as far as I could, and then because imagine that this is the length of the drawer, okay? My arm was having to go back behind it, okay? So I'd pulled the full length of drawer out as far as it would go, and I had to sneak my arm back in there, and then the moment my elbow went past in there to reach back there, because the drawer length was so long that's why so much of my arm basically had to go in there. I don't know why we're talking science now, but it was hilarious now that I look back, and we really were sitting there for at least 30 minutes. So the first 10, they were laughing and saying, oh, what are you doing? And then the next 20 minutes when they realized it was stuck, they just were laughing and looking at me, and they were hooting and hollering, and it was a whole thing. So finally, my friend went, and at this job we had like a kitchen that they kept like fully stocked of everything. And I don't know how, but I think that she went and got some butter. And so then we're like lathering my freaking arm up with butter at work. Didn't do anything. And I could tell that my arm was swelling. And then everyone started to be like, okay, this is a problem. You know, when it started getting towards an hour, that's when they were kind of like, oh, I guess this isn't funny. And so they had to call the fire department. Yeah. And all I kept thinking was, I have no idea what these firemen are gonna think when they see me. Because here I am at work with my hand stuck behind a filing cabinet. I remember that definitely going through my mind. And then the worst part of it all is that just as they showed up, my back was, if anything, the worst part was my back because of the way that I had to be bent. So I was, again, not in any sort of comfortable position. And even I think being on my knees, it was weird because I was like turned, and I don't even know. But I just remembered that I didn't have any options to like change or switch my body and relieve the pressure into different ways. I was literally stuck in one way. Oh, I remember why, because my elbow was locked and I couldn't move this arm. And so your body, it was weird. So the pain of my back was I was starting to get really nervous, and I could feel like that heat, you know, that heat that just kind of rises through you. I remember feeling that almost like a panic feeling, and I could not any longer sit in that position. And just as the fire department showed up, I don't know what I did, but I yanked and my arm came out. And so there I am. You should have seen my arm. I mean, the poor thing was so swollen. And they never let me forget it, sweeties. Never. Never. I bet you if I reached out to one of them that I hadn't seen since, basically, about that time, I would say, what's the one thing that when you think of me comes to mind? They will say your arm getting stuck in the drawer. And P.S. never got the magazine. So I wish the story could have ended great, like a Disney movie where she gets her prince, but instead she gets her magazine. She did not get the magazine. And I said, I don't care. It's staying back there. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know if you guys like this story time or not, but that is what happened to me. So, so there's that.